If we're going to stay with the Q&As.
It's a bit weird turning on kissing everybody.
Yeah, I think maybe... Yeah.
I'm not going to kiss you because I don't know you, but it wouldn't offend you.
Do you want to sit here? Yes.
Nearly Suffolk. I've always said, as it's Suffolk border. Given my
That's a different hole, isn't it?
Am I on your camera if I sit here?
No.
Oh.
No.
I like your nail.
Four people are currently watching us online live. Isn't that exciting? I'm just waiting for Fifi and Abigail to get changed and join us, and then we'll start. So, yes. Wait patiently with us. Thank you. Obviously, maybe we can just start chatting, because I'm aware, obviously, that people do have trains to catch and perhaps transport. I'll give them 1 more minute to get changed, and then we'll begin. Rika? On the way. Thank you so much. Are they English?
Are we a bit too close? Or do we need to be closer?
That's my chair. You've stolen my chair, Abby. That's my chair.
Okay, we have 20 minutes. I'm sure everyone wants to go home, so we'll fire through these questions. So this is our question and answer session. My name, as some of you might already know, is Paula Garfield. This is Abigail.
My name is Abigail. Yeah, sign name Abigail, or Abby for sure.
And she's an actor in this production. You might find myself repeating myself a few times, but it's because we have a Facebook live stream.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Fifi.
And what's your role? We're having a live stream here, Fifi.
I'm very sorry. I am acting. I am the manager character, and be very afraid. Were you afraid of me? Were you? I think you might be.
So I'll try not to waffle on. Any questions you might have, will be happy to answer. Questions for myself, Abigail, or Fifi. I directed this piece. We have a question already.
Why did you pick this play, was the question.
So the question was, why did I pick this play in particular? I am the artistic director of Definitely Theatre, and one of my responsibilities is to work out our programme for the next 4 years. So we're always thinking ahead so we can apply for funding from the Arts Council. At that time, I was looking at various different plays and productions, and I remembered when we started thinking, when we set up Definitely Theatre for the first time, we were thinking about devising our pieces, but it was very expensive and there was a high risk that came with that came attached to that. So we decided to go with scripts, so we didn't have to spend so much money devising our pieces. It takes time doing that, so it has pros and cons to doing that, and to both of them. I wanted to think about what would be accessible for both audiences, hearing and deaf, and also using hearing and deaf actors and what would be applicable to them. So the writer of Contractions is a gentleman called Mike Bartlett, and I personally love his style of writing. I've seen various shows that he's written, and he really focuses on social class and human interactions and their relationships, and he really looks into the psychological dynamics within their relationships. And I looked at various plays that he'd written, but I was really attracted to Contractions because it focused in particular on 2 females. We're so used to seeing so many male-dominated plays, so it's very exciting to have females, and to be honest, it's cheaper having 2 actors.
And also, can I just add, it's lovely to see it's nothing about deaf issues, nothing about medical issues. It's just a play where the manager happens to be deaf. That's very unique.
Absolutely, and you probably noticed that there was repetition a lot, and you probably thought we might have done that on purpose for language access reasons, but actually it's written in the piece. I actually thought about maybe having 2 deaf people and 2 interpreters playing the piece, but actually I thought, no, it's about 2 women creating tension between themselves, and bringing in that extra dynamic of 2 interpreters might have changed that dynamic and that tension. I wondered whether I'd have captions throughout the production, but I thought, no, I was going to take the risk and take that out and use sign language and spoken English. I originally thought it would be a hearing manager and a deaf employee, but I thought, no, the deaf people always play the victims, and so I thought we'd swap it over. Deaf empowerment, and why not have an evil deaf person? Deaf people aren't always the nicest, are we? Any other questions?
Mike Bartlett, the writer, has he seen this play? Have you invited him to watch this production of Contractions?
I'm just going to repeat your question for our lovely Facebook viewers. The question was, has the writer, Mike Bartlett, seen the production? He will, but I'm not telling the actors when. I'm not telling the actors when. We found out actually today.
No way, really? Oh, wow! Wow, that's exciting.
So hopefully he'll love it and he'll write a play about deaf culture or something related to deaf people. He's a very, very flexible writer, because there was some dialogue that I had to have some Abigail adding a few things, and I wanted to be sensitive to the writer. I didn't want to make too many changes or cuts, and he was so flexible, and I showed him a few examples, and he was quite happy with the additions I wanted to make, and I think he's quite enthusiastic to see how it's working and worked. We have a question from Roger.
As I was watching this piece, I was thinking, what do you think the actors think we should learn from this piece?
Question for the actors. What did the actors hope to learn from, the audience learn from this piece?
I hope that the audience learn about their rights and not to be abused at work. Stand up for yourself. Don't be Emma. Don't be me. Don't copy me. You should have said something way, way back in scene 1. Say no. Get your contract out, look at it, know your rights, go see the union, and don't stand for it, basically.
And to add to that, deaf people can be managers.
Yes.
But not horrible managers, obviously, like I was in this play. Just to let you know, that is not obviously true to life.
And that's another reason why I chose this piece, because I wanted to show that deaf people can be in managerial positions. And I want to empower them to feel that they would never be like Emma or be in Emma's position. We can learn something from Fifi.
Let me speak to you after this, I think.
Any more questions?
I have a question about the set. How did you decide to perform the production in this space? I thought we'd be in a theatre tonight, but we're in a very different space. How did you pick here?
So the question was, I thought it would be in a normal theatre, a usual theatre. Why is it site-specific and why this place in particular? My producer, Dom, over there. My producer, Dom. Well, it's fantastic. We finally have our own producer for the first time, so it's wonderful. And after a long time having conversations with him and various venues, he actually mentioned, why not do something site-specific and in an actual office space? I'd never done it before, so there was natural anxieties. He looked around and did his research and spoke to the new Diorama Theatre, and they said, oh, bear with us, we'll do some research. And I think that was around last year, just before Christmas, so I wasn't even sure. Was that right, Dom? Was it just before Christmas last year?
Yes, indeed.
But we then found out we'd got a space. But it wasn't easy, because there's so much more we have to think about. Power cables, electrical supply. We've got to bring lighting for this production. What else, Dom? Is there anything you want to add?
Reinforcing the floor, so the seating back can sit on top of it.
Hello.
Turning the power on.
I just want to say it was absolutely fantastic, and I think it's the most amazing venue.
Just saying it's a fantastic venue, being in an actual office space. And actually, they actually offered us a room just off on the side with very low ceilings, and I said, no, absolutely not. I wanted the centre space in this exact location. So we finally got offered that, and we're the first company to actually use this space. So we're very lucky. Thanks to Dom. All thanks goes to Dom. He's worked extremely hard working with the new Diorama Theatre.
There's been lots of people walking around the backstage and the higher floors, and it really feels like we're in a real office.
Yes, you're right. We've got a lot of lighting. We've got a lot of people working behind. I actually wanted the main lights to be off completely, so it's just stage lights. But actually, we have cleaners working in those offices after hours. But I quite like it because it creates the atmosphere of actually working in an office. And I actually considered having some volunteered actors or extras walking around looking in. But I thought, no, we're a member of the Independent Theatre Council and Equity, and they don't like any actors volunteering, and you have to pay for their time. And that's fair enough, and I respect that. So it's a shame.
But, you know, aren't I? Is that right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're genuine cleaners.
Well done, the cleaners. Round of applause for the cleaners on the floors above. Can I just add something? Someone yesterday came up to me and said there was lots of women in the audience last night who felt very distressed. And they said, does Mike Bartlett have children? And I don't know the answer to that question. Does Mike Bartlett have children of his own?
I don't think he does.
It's private, it's confidential, says Emma/Abby.
Should have used my voice confidential.
I don't think he has got children.
Interesting. Anyway, it was a question that person asked me, and I said I'd asked, so I'm passing the message on. The two actors, can I ask, how did you feel acting in these roles? It must have been incredibly distressing, talking about, you know, a child passing away. You know, how did you feel acting in this piece?
Don't reveal the storyline or the spoiler onto Facebook, all right, Fifi? Just asked how she felt playing that role.
Obviously, it's been an incredibly intense process, and I really have to think about, you know, really putting my emotions and my feelings aside and think about that this is a play, this is a character. I'm not Fifi Garfield on this day, I am the manager. That is my character name, the manager. And my emotions have gone. And you saw me sitting, you know, in that chair throughout. I am this manager. I control this building. I am the boss. And that's what I'm just repeating that mantra in my head. And then actually, you know, my emotions have actually been, you know, put in a pocket, really. Yeah. But it's just the text is so powerful, and that's really what we're following and bringing to it.
And actually, in the script, no one does know her name. She is written as the manager.
For Emma, obviously, it's a huge character wiggle. And it's the same. I have to remove myself from the character, otherwise you'll go insane. So it's been very, like, there's been a few days where we've had to talk about some of the topics, and it's been dark, and obviously you're emotional. Lots of crying has happened in that room about this play. But yeah, again, like Fifi, just remind myself that I'm not Emma. I can play a victim, but I'm not a victim. Because for me, your notes always,
I have to keep reminding you.
More victim. It's not natural. It's not natural for me.
Yes.
Yeah, more vulnerable.
Naturally, Abigail's very assertive. And I'm like, stop playing the assertiveness, play more vulnerability. And it's the same with Fifi. She has to be more straight-laced, and she's had to get smaller and smaller.
And you might have noticed earlier there was some production photos where I actually sat around Emma and actually put my arm around her. But the directors decided, nope, that was far too soft for my character. So, no, I don't even do that anymore. That was in the rehearsal process. She's like, no, you're tough, you don't do that. You show no compassion to her. But obviously I have to listen to my good director here.
They've both been fantastic because they listened to my notes and they've taken my direction fantastically. So I think you've been fantastic. I admire you both.
And I have to admit, you know, it's been amazing working well with us. You know, with easygoing. You know, we've had jokes, we've had hugs. It's been lovely, absolutely working with Abby. It's been a really lovely experience.
I love you too.
Oh, so much love. Oh, can't see that question. How long did we rehearse before the production opened? It was a month to answer the question, and that was included a week, additional week we did of research and development work in the summer. So a month plus a week, so that's 5 weeks altogether. Every day, 10 to 6, including weekends too, we did as well as part of that process. So we had a week of previews at the beginning when we opened, so which, you know, mistakes were allowed. We got feedback notes from Paula every night for a week, and then we had press night, and then that's it. We are on. It's up to us now. There's no more notes. I think she's bored of watching the piece. She didn't even come and watch it tonight. She's too bored of seeing it. She's seen it too many times. Question, do you have 2 weeks left? Is that right? Have you had any bloopers? Any mistakes? Any accidents? Anything you want to admit? The blind.
The blind getting stuck, yes.
Of course, there have been things that have happened, but we've covered them up. There have been mistakes, you know.
Like,
we've
for
covered.
example, you falling?
I can't remember examples, I'm afraid.
Sometimes scenes have been a bit, but I've just been looking at you, hoping to get back on track because I can't.
I noticed once that Fifi said a line that was in the next scene, and you said sorry, you apologised, and she backtracked.
Yeah, and we really have to listen to each other. You know, Emma and I, Abby and I, have to listen to each other and respond. Listen and respond.
What time? Oh, we've got 2 questions. Hold on, I'll take this one at the back.
The blinds. Were you aware of that? The blinds issue tonight?
Just repeating that for the camera.
I saw the blind halfway up, and I was like, what's my next line? What am I supposed to say? At the same time, I'm thinking, how? Fuck, what are we going to do? Oh, language. What are we going to do? What's my line? There's the line. Okay, let's keep going. So, yeah, it was a bit of a heart-in-mouth moment, I have to say. So, yes.
And another question?
That was only one mistake, I think, the blind that we saw. How many did you actually cover that we don't know about?
Were there even more tonight that we don't know about?
Fifi's saying I've translated that question for the camera.
Some nights it's completely perfect, some nights no mistakes. Some nights a few lines are around the wrong way or maybe miss a couple of lines. Talking about tonight, how many mistakes did we cover? I don't know.
Thousands.
A few. I think there were perhaps small word issues, I think. So I just have to say, well done if you did cover that up. We didn't notice anything. So
Yes, well done.
Obviously, professional actors have to cover up mistakes that you, our beautiful audience, are not aware of these mistakes.
Once, I have a story. I was in a show, Children of a Lesser God, and one of the actors that played my lover was, well, my speech to language therapist. In that scene, the actor forgot a good few pages of the show and left the stage. And I was on that stage by myself. Thank you very much. I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave and leave an empty stage. I thought, shit, I wanted the floor to open up and eat me. But we were just in the middle of an argument. He walked off, so I had to try and maintain that emotion. He ran off and told everyone to jump to the next scene. There was me emoting after the argument we just had. And it felt like forever. It felt like 10 minutes, but it was only a minute. And we moved straight on to the next scene, and everyone came on stage, and we carried on. It was my worst nightmare. You should never panic.
That has never happened between Abby and I. Never, can I say?
These guys are professional. We have one more question.
I just want to talk about how interesting it was, how you made it accessible for both hearing and deaf audiences. Some scenes Abby repeated, some signs, obviously your sign was very visual for a hearing audience, but also the technology you use, like the PowerPoint and so forth. How did you all of that, really?
All together, Abigail said. With all of my work, we work together. I work with my team. I'm not a director that says this is how it should be. I like to look at the piece and try everyone's ideas. I like everyone to throw their ideas into the pot and play. And that's one of the reasons we have a research and development. And one of the reasons the two actors got on. Abigail is a coder, a child of deaf adults. She understands deaf culture. And so some of her suggestions are wonderful. She suggests trying various different ideas, as did Fifi. We played. And play in itself is incredibly useful. We can put the script aside and just play with ideas. We also brought in a visual consultant, Brian Duffy. And himself, he works as a visual consultant and really expanded on the action that I directed and stretched it further and further and further. And to be honest, it helps that Fifi's a qualified linguist.
I'm not a linguist, I'm a translator. English to BSL translator.
So Fifi's got a lot of experience of how to present British Sign Language and the language itself. And actually I think it's very important for most actors that sign to understand and have that skill. Like that hearing actors are trained to use their voice. I think it's the same for a deaf actor.
My question is, well, I think the biggest impact I've found tonight is just, sort of watching this play. It's everyday scenarios. It's an everyday dynamic. It's a working relationship. But the actual details are just completely absurd. It's completely fucked. Absolutely. But I sort of just got drawn into it. But the storyline was so absurd, so mad, so mind-bending. But I'm really fucked off with you, I have to say. Fifi, you're welcome. Love to you.
Fifi was so brave taking on this role. And to go to the extremes, I suggested so many things, and I know actors that would turn these suggestions down and say, oh no, my actor wouldn't do that. And they would choose to play it safe. And it's boring. Fifi was willing to break these boundaries, and even the same for Abigail. Absolutely.
Can I just say I'm frightened of Paula? Can I say absolutely? Another question: is this a true story? Is the question?
I don't think the play is a true story. I think it's a bit far-fetched, if I'm honest. But it's an extreme that could happen. It could become reality, and it could happen to anybody. There are managers that are bullies. Yes, of course, the play is an extreme version. You know, what happens if we have an extreme version of something that is extreme. And that's why I like Mike Bartlett. He wants to challenge society and challenge how we see things.
I've still, it's very impactful and very emotive story. It felt very real. You know, it felt like it was really like a real story. It actually gave me the chills, gave me the goosebumps, and that horrible, disgusting manager was just not very nice at all.
Yes, and actually it's interesting that you all believed it. And so that clearly is a compliment for the two wonderful actors.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What time is it? Can I have a time check, please? So we have one more question. We have time for one more question.
Make it a good one.
Someone who's not asked, ideally. Anyone who's not asked?
It's a story-specific question. I felt it was unclear how the baby died.
So, Mike Bartlett doesn't give you that information. So, we have to decide ourselves. But it's up to you guys. It's up to the audience to decide that for yourselves. I know what I've decided as my motive, but it's up to you guys. I'd love to hear what you think.
I think during the rehearsal process, it was something we did talk about a lot. We spoke about the characters and their relationship a lot, and also what had happened in between those scenes, and how we can make it a reality for them. Okay, one more. We'll squeeze in one more. Okay, we'll squeeze in two more.
Similarly, the stylistic way that you both left, was that written in the play?
I'm not clear. Could you repeat yourself, please?
And that was created, again, in the rehearsal space. Obviously the words are there, and there's a few directions in the script, but that was created from what we thought might happen,
together.
How she'd return, how would they behave, and what would be a really beautiful visual way of us leaving the space, finishing the show.
When we were playing in rehearsals, I noticed they did that style of walking naturally, and I liked that, so that was an actor suggestion.
Thank you.
Personally, I found it very interesting that they saw life as very direct pathways. One more question.
I really enjoyed the dynamics that you presented in this piece. And also, I felt like it was a bit dystopian. It's almost like we saw this dystopian future. Like, 1983, 1984, could this happen? You know, what's going to happen in the future? Would jobs and companies and managers be strict and behave that way in sort of corporate world? All employees had to sort of, follow them and be these victims. And was that your aim to create for this piece? Was that the aim you wanted to create?
I think the script doesn't, the script does not even start to say when it's set, but I decided 1980s because of the style that I decided to go for with the aesthetic of the office space that we're in at the moment. But also, there are people in Japan that have died because they've been overworked. For various reasons, but mostly because they've worked so many hours and they've overworked themselves and they drop down dead when they leave the building. Does that answer your question?
I think more of my idea was like Kafka. It was almost like Kafka's trial. or George Orwell? That kind of philosophy of that kind of future, that dictatorial, routine, government-controlled space.
Yes, definitely.
And I just wonder, if you had that in mind when you were doing this piece, and then you sort of saw that sort of, downhill descent into that sort of chaotic world of the piece. Was that the aim that you were trying to create with this play?
Oh, yes, definitely.
That was the aim. And interesting when Paula just mentioned about Japan and the people that have died, obviously from overwork, and people that work all those hours without thinking of self-care, self-preservation. So, yes, that was the thing.
Yes, you're completely right. Just to let you know, we got some news from Off West End, and we've been nominated for Best Production.
And Best Director. I'm sorry, please add that. And Best Director. You are nominated. Well done, Paula.
Stop it, Fifi. Anyway, great news that I just got. I'm not sure how their voting system works or the process works. I think it goes to public vote in January.
Please vote for us.
When I get more information, we'll be sure to let you know in January, in the new year. So please vote for us. Best Production.
I'm watching you. I am the manager watching you.
Thank you so much for coming and having such a wonderful question and answer session. Thank you. And thank you to Ian for setting up the Facebook live stream.